Okay, I am so excited for this episode. If you've heard any of our episodes where I've been asked who I want as a guest on this show, our guest today is the person that I've answered with each time. So I think we should just get right into it.
I'm here too. Hi everyone.
Yes.
I'm here often.
And just for context, Justin told me he did not have a check-in for this episode. So I was not ignoring him, even though...
Only a little.
He's a little straight. This episode is going to be gay. I just want to, let you know that now.
Happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride Month. It's coming in... Yes.
We should say why right now.
Yes. So this episode is coming out in Pride Month, which we are very serious about. And you know we're serious about it because we don't change our logo to the rainbow. That's how you know we're actually gay. I'm gay. Anyways, that's not the way I want to tell people. Maybe we'll put that in the bloopers.
Before we bring in our guest though, I do know that you went to Target the other day because they're kind of notorious for some of that stuff. Did you see anything of note that you want to report on the show this episode?
I didn't, but nothing noteworthy. I did. I mean, a week ago.
Yeah.
Or a couple weeks ago now. I went and saw the Live Laugh Lesbian shirt in person. So good.
You saw a nice bathrobe too.
I did. I wore a bathrobe. I tried it on. I didn't buy it because I have to go home and there's already enough stuff in my Mary Poppins bag, which you all saw.
We're in person today.
We are in person. All three
of
us are in person. We are out of state. Shall we just get right into it?
Let's do it.
Perfect. Okay, so we actually have two guests on the show today. The first one is white, it's large, and it's not ready to come out yet. It's the massive pimple on my forehead. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. But we do have Julia Joseph, who, as I said before, I have wanted on this show since the very beginning, the very first episode. She graduated from Loyola University, Maryland in 2018. She worked in campus ministry where she met myself, her senior year, my sophomore. She works in construction, which I'm not going to say it, but for all the queers, we know. And then she is also a dog mom to Olive and lives with her partner of 6 years in Maryland. So please help me welcome to the show, Point of View, you're familiar with it, Julia Joseph.
Welcome.
I am so thrilled to be here.
Did you like that intro?
I loved that intro.
Perfect.
I might cry about that intro,
Perfect.
to be honest.
I mean, me too, because this is really hurting. I'm not going to lie. It's like, and it's not, by not ready to come out, I've been trying to get it all day, and it just will not, it's not ready.
And also like an allegory, right?
Right. And I've been staying in someone else's house, so I really can't be in the mirror being oh yeah,
Actual sounds.
This is weird having an audience in person, everybody looking at me now. I feel like I'm being judged.
I think what I miss from just listening week to week is all of the physical notions that happen in the studio.
Yes.
I have loved being part of this so far.
I love that. Well, I've loved having you here, and it's almost over. No, I'm kidding. I did tell you that it does go by quickly, these episodes. But yeah, today we just wanted to talk about, since it's Pride Month, coming out, the process of coming out, and also queerness as it pertains to faith and the intersection between the two. So let's just be gay for the next 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk first about should we talk about how we identify both? First of all, we should probably all do pronouns. We haven't done pronouns since the very beginning of the show, and that's something that I take responsibility
just be clear,
for.
As we enter this type of conversation, how everyone kind of comes
identifies, yeah.
So want to let our guests.
Oh my God, yes, but before we do, more important questions than that. If you were a fruit, I can't believe I almost forgot. What fruit would you be, and why?
I have thought about this question every week since the first time you asked this question. And my answer is going to be gay.
Perfect.
If I were a fruit, and people have said it before, I would be an apple.
Mm-hmm.
My reasoning is that I recently found out that I'm allergic to raw apples.
Me too.
Oh.
You are? Is it that, what is it called? Oral allergy syndrome?
Allergy syndrome.
Not oral.
dumb name.
Yeah.
To me, first of all. Second of all, I'm allergic to raw apples, but once they're baked, it's totally fine.
It's like me and milk.
Milk,
is it?
really?
You didn't know this? Oh my god, we'll talk about
You
this.
can have cooked milk?
Yes. Yeah. I'm allergic to a protein in it once it's cooked out.
Lactose?
No, casein.
Oh.
Interesting.
Well, we can talk about that later. This is not about. This is about how I am a minority in another way. I'm kidding. I don't. Anyways,
So
you might cut that out, but maybe not.
So I'm allergic to raw apples. Once they're cooked, it's, all fine.
Okay.
I think that's like a pretty good allegory of like, yeah, and when you're just a kid and you don't know anything about who you are, you have to mature and evolve, and then like you're not itchy in your own skin anymore,
Ooh.
Plus, I just happened to be partnered with someone that makes the most amazing apple crumble. So
She cooks you? I'm kidding.
So like things are amazing, So
I love
if
that.
I were a fruit, I would be an apple.
Love that.
I love
That's
that.
what
And I love how it was shortened to the point, because none of us have been able to do that. Like, you were ready. I don't think we've had a single guest be ready for that question.
No.
That was great. And we've had guests that have listened to the show before.
I was going to say, it tells who listens to the
It
show
does,
before we
for
have
sure.
them on versus guests who have never listened before.
So less important are sexualities. Would you like to go first? How you enter, and we can do pronouns too. How you enter this space, and only what you're comfortable with, of course.
Absolutely. So my pronouns are she, her, and I identify as bisexual. So that is the B in LGBT, and that means that I'm attracted to two genders. For me, those two genders happen to be female and male, and there are, of course, a lot of different ways that people can identify as bisexual, but that's what it means for me.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of gender identity, cisgender, transgender, how do you...
Thank you, Justin. Yes, cisgender.
Okay.
Thank you.
And for those who don't know, that means that if you are cisgender, you identify with the gender that you were assigned, or the sex you were assigned at birth.
Yes. Do you want to go next, or do you want me to?
I can go next.
Sure.
I go with pronouns he, him, his. I identify as a straight cisgender male man.
All right, it's me. Hi. You know me, you love me, you hate me. So it's Nick. I don't know if we said that. So I identify as gay, which, you know what, I'm not going to say it.
The G
I identify
in
as...
LGBT.
Well, the G in LGBT. Yeah. I was going to make like a BLT joke, but I don't know what the G is. Yeah, so the G. I am also a cisgender male. I use he, him, his. This is actually the first time I have come out on a public platform officially. I've made a lot of innuendos, and I'm going to explain why. I've made a lot of jokes. I've made fruity jokes, which I'm going to explain why in a little bit. So that's our story.
Proud of you.
Thanks. I feel like I'm not really doing anything right now because it's just the three of us. We've all known for like 5 years. It's just no one else is here but your partner who is in the studio.
I would recognize, though, that we've had conversations around, and maybe we'll get into this because knowing where the conversation's going to go, where you've made it very intentional of not, I guess, quote, come out on the show, but you've alluded to your sexuality.
Yes, in a humorous way. I've tried to
Exactly.
make it funny for people.
But also you not having to feel like you have to come out. And I'm sure, the both of you can talk more about that and your own experiences in your own lives, but that's something that you've been very intentional about too, is not feeling like you have to come out on the show and
Right.
just be who you are.
Right. Should we talk about what it meant to each of us to come out? I feel like that was... Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? You're the guest. You can go first if you want. Yeah, because ours, interestingly enough, and stay tuned for this, keep listening, because they both intersect with faith, which is not always talked about, I feel. It might be in a unique situation for people that are listening.
I definitely agree. I think a lot of the times when you are a queer person in a religious space, it's not always talked about in a way that's fun, certainly not joyful. And I think that I have certainly had the wonderful experience of it being a joyful thing in a religious context, but that comes with the privilege of not coming out until I was in college.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, I knew pretty early on. I knew when I was 13, but I was dating a boy at the time, and I thought, well, I intend to marry this man, and so it doesn't matter.
At 13?
If
I love that for you.
Yeah, 13.
I love that for you.
Small town life.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
so I was so sure that I was going to marry this boy, the first boyfriend I ever had. And I didn't think that then it mattered if I came out or not. So it was something to easily put under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
But when we broke up in college, I had to face myself with that.
Wow.
We didn't know each other at the time, if that makes you feel better.
No.
Meaning
No,
you
and even if you
Correct,
did,
yes.
I want to clarify that. Even if we did know each other, there are people that may hear this episode that I've known and been very close with for a long time that might be shocked. It's really, I don't think it has to do with how close you are to someone. It's the dynamics. It's when you feel comfortable. It's totally like, I don't think I would I don't think I would have a right to, I'm very for like feeling all things, but I don't think I would have a right to be like, you didn't tell me, and be serious about it. That would, no. I was just surprised that you dated someone from 14 to college. That's a long time. That's impressive for a teenager.
Oh yeah, it was a very long time. It was, we were together for 6 years, and now my partner and I have been together for 6 years. And
You're about to cross the threshold.
Exactly. So she's really excited to like make the new record. You know what I mean?
New record.
Just confetti.
Yeah. I'm coming back with
6
my
years
confetti.
in one day.
Yeah.
Broke the record.
You had to face yourself.
I had to face myself. I did. I had to understand what being bisexual meant for me. Also find that label in the first place. And I didn't find that until my sophomore year. What was really helpful for me was being surrounded by other queer people. I think that just kind of happens to friend groups. If you have one queer person in a friend group, chances are other people are going to learn more about themselves because you get the free education. You know what I mean? And when I came out to my friends, everyone was so supportive because, again, there are already other queer people in this friend group, and you just kind of experience the joy from there. Mm-hmm. I have always been really involved with my Catholic faith and the church, so being able to have a sort of secular relationship with my queerness was wonderful, but it was really difficult to translate that into a religious relationship with my queerness. And to do that, I had to struggle with my faith in that and go on a retreat at Loyola and kind of pray about that directly. I think of it as coming out to God too. And I swear on my life that when I did like verbalize in prayer that I wasn't straight and that I was queer to God, I swear that God laughed at me. Every time I think back on that, I swear that. So, because God already knows.
Exactly.
And
if you believe in the Catholic, I can only speak for the religion that we both subscribe to or are, right? If you believe God is all-knowing, then he already knows.
Exactly. And that made me feel super safe and loved. In that moment, it didn't matter to me the rules that the Catholic Church has or the doctrine that it enforces. I knew that I was safe and right with God. And so anything that I then pursued religiously or in my personal life from there on out was, I don't really want to use the word kosher because that's not us, but but it was everything was fine, everything was good, everything was blessed from that moment on.
I think we'll get into this too, but the concept of everyone being made in God's image too, not only God being all-knowing, but believing that we're all made in God's image and we're all part of the body of Christ and being part of that. And so I think that's part of that too, is that knowing that you're made in God's image as you are is just as important in that too.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for saying that. That was beautiful.
Nick, you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say, so it's interesting because I feel like your situation and my situation were mirrored, and they literally meet at the intersection of faith on a retreat. It's very interesting because I had no issue with my faith journey and being gay. I had no issue with that. I had an issue with the non-religious part of it because I was like, what is my family gonna think? I can never tell my friends I don't want to be with a man. It was a very strange thing. I didn't know like you did. Like, I wasn't like, oh, I'm 13 and I know. Like, I was having those thoughts, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna marry a girl, and then I'm gonna burp. Hold on one sec. All right, we're good. I'm drinking Coke, sponsored by Coca-Cola Zero Sugar.
I was gonna say, no Dragon Whispers today.
Yeah. Oh my God. I've also been like force-fed food all weekend. It was so good. But
shout out to the person you stayed with?
Yeah, no, she planned the best food for us. It was so good. I was more afraid of, like, I don't even, first of all, want to be with a man. And it was interesting because I was like 16 at the time saying this, but I was picturing myself with like a 45-year-old man. Like when I think of men, like I wasn't thinking of people my age. And that's why I didn't want it. I was like, ew. And it was probably also internalized homophobia. But literally all of that switched for me when I went on the retreat that I briefly talked about last time. And I'm going to talk about one person in particular. It's not the person that I spoke about that I developed a huge crush for last episode, or talked about developing a huge crush for. It was somebody that I had always admired from afar in college, or in high school, excuse me, this was in high school, and he ended up being the leader, the student leader of the retreat. And I didn't know, I wasn't friends with him. I don't think I had ever talked to him until the retreat, but I always admired him from afar. He was just like a really, really good person, super sweet. Like, just the friend group was also sweet, so you just knew like these were the people that you wanted to hang out with, and just they were good people.
Be clear, this was not the person you said
this
last
was not
episode
the person
that you wrote in a letter, I love you.
Yeah, and that was just poor wording.
I see.
And you, as go person. Listen to the last episode, because I messed that one up bad. Yeah. But this person spoke about, the one I'm talking about now in this episode, spoke about coming out, which was also like, when I was like admiring him from afar, I guess, I didn't even know he was gay. Like, I did not know. We were like sophomores in high school, and then this was senior year, the retreat. So he spoke about it, and between him and the person that I developed feelings for, it really just, on that, like, I went into that retreat thinking, okay, if I open up at all, it's going to be about OCD. That was like and it was what I opened up on the retreat. But the person, he might hate this now, I don't know, but he said my goal on this retreat is to turn someone gay. Not like actually, but he meant like help them
provide a comfortable enough space for someone to, if they're
questioning
their
come out. Like and so after their talk, I wrote on their pad of paper where you like write the notes to them. I was like, I was so awkward. I was like, I think you did what you set out to do. Haha, like LOL, scratch out. I think you did, like whatever. And then he was actually the first person beside my parents and therapist that I told. And I told him through an email. And I said, like, good job at the end. Like, like, you just don't know how much you helped me. And then he really did just kind of like, just over text. But it was, we were 17 or 18. So it was like, just going through that unpacking after and like, telling people. He was the first one. And so if he ever does hear this, I very much appreciate him. And I hope he's doing well, honestly. Which, that's what I wanted to talk about it, because full circle, Julia is sitting right here, got to meet him at right? Isn't that wild? Got to meet him at the Queer Catholics Conference that Loyola held our sophomore year. She had invited me to the like redo prom basically, and I said, okay, yeah, I'll go. That was part of the conference. I only went to the prom.
The redo prom, for those who don't know, is essentially a semi-formal, formal dance opportunity for people to essentially redo their prom experience as someone who's a part of the LGBTQ community
Right.
now, like feeling more confident in who you are,
Right,
kind of
which-
discovering yourself?
Exactly, which
Okay.
I didn't really need to do because shout out Delia, who is also queer, and I'm going to bleep her name if she wants me to. I'm going to ask her this beforehand. But awesome prom date twice. Yeah, they were great. But I wanted to bring that up because you got to meet him. I texted him and I was like, hey, I just wanted to let you know, like, I'm going to this thing, and like I just thought you'd be really proud to know because you were the first person I've told, and this is, you know, and he was like, I'm going too. OMG, he didn't go to Loyola. He went to a school far away from Loyola. So it was just cool that you got to meet him, and that's all I wanted to say there. But
it was cool, and I loved being able to not just as someone that like we were discovering queerness together at the same time, but also as my friend to be able to meet parts of your life before we were friends is so cool.
Right, and just a small part of my life, but a huge part of my life too, because that's such a big moment, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that, Justin, you were about to get into what Ignatian Q is.
Yes. So for those of you who don't know, the conference, I guess, that Nick was referring to is called Ignatian Q. And it's this conference, and both of you correct me if I'm wrong, it's this conference that's put on by the Association of Jesuit Colleges and Universities. So it's not just Loyola and other schools around Loyola, but it's all of the Jesuit schools, colleges, and universities. High schools are not Jesuit high schools, no, but colleges and universities. And a different school hosts it every year, and Loyola happened to host it the year that you attended, right, Nick?
Yes.
And so it's an opportunity for those who identify as within the LGBTQ community, allies as well.
Yes.
Are invited to
I had two
attend.
dates. I had 2 dates.
Okay.
Shout out
I guess
Rachel.
we'll get into that in a second.
Rachel, no, I just need to. You always need to give the shout outs. Maddie, who you know,
Yeah.
and Rachel, who was on episode 14 of this show.
Yes.
So.
So that's the conference that still goes on today. If you
Yes.
want to go, I think Fordham hosted this past year. I don't know who's hosting in 2024, but we can advertise that too. But yeah.
It's an incredible conference that really focuses on that intersection between the Jesuit faith, Jesuit education, and your queer identity, which is something that, like, I think the average person who perhaps is casual Catholic, a Christian but not Catholic, the average gay person, you don't think that those two should ever mix. That's oil and vinegar. But it was an incredible event that my roommate helped organize with campus ministry. She is not a religious person, but campus ministry is. And so it was so cool to see how these two organizations came together to produce such an incredible thing on campus, and something that so totally spoke to both of our identities between Nick and I. And it was an amazing experience. I got to interview Father James Martin, who is an incredibly boisterous ally from the Society of Jesus. He's an incredible ally for the queer community and has 2 books out now, I think, about the intersection between faith and queerness.
And can I haven't read the book, so I shouldn't really talk, but when we say, like, ally within the Catholic Church, it's not like, don't judge them because that's a sin too. Like, let them sin on their, like, it's not like that. Like, I totally understand if somebody thinks they shouldn't mix, and for some people it is oil and vinegar because they just feel so ostracized from the church or disregarded.
And I can talk a little bit about the official Catholic stance.
Yes,
from
of
the
course,
catechism and stuff
of
later
course.
on, but
I just want to say too, like, when I say Catholic, when I say I'm Catholic, like, faith can mean so many different things to so many different people. And I don't want to speak for you, but please tell me if I'm correct, and I think I will be. None of us at this table stand for any of the bullshit in the Catholic Church. I'm just going to be honest. Like, there's a lot of it. And I'm not saying, like, oh, but you can be gay and participate in it. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I don't even go to church regularly, which is, like, I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, you can be connected and feel connected to your God in your own way. Mm-hmm. So I just want to put that out there.
Absolutely.
Nick, I wanted to ask you, because I think when we hear Juliet, when she was just telling her story, you can hear that faith explicitly was a very strong part of kind of like her identity and kind of her coming out story, and you had mentioned that too, and how it intersected with your journey to coming out and just I guess self-realization. I don't want to say coming out, but more so your journey of discovery, I'll say. But what was your experience like when you were kind of on that journey, and specifically with faith? Because I know that you said a lot of it happened, and it might have happened a lot on this retreat that you were talking about. But after this retreat, how did faith play a role in, how did your intersectionality with your faith and your sexual orientation kind of play that?
I'm glad you asked that, because it segues perfectly into what I wanted to talk about. But good. I just think, like, my one regret from college, and it was mainly due to, like I said, this group of kids who was just so nice. And then when I went on this retreat, I was like, oh my God, they're like just so awesome and super, like, when I feel like there's sometimes a stigma that like Catholic or anything religious conservative, and like these were the most liberal people that you will ever meet, and it was just great. I regretted not participating in campus ministry in high school. So I was like, I have to do it in college. So I did FIRST, which is a pre-fall program. I'm not even going to get into what it means. Just I did a pre-fall program with campus ministry at Loyola going into my freshman year of college. It was like to help integrate you into the college process.
And you get to move in early. You get to talked about
exactly. The leader, Elise, also queer, very vocal about it at the very beginning. Let us know that is how she introduced herself. She said, "My name is Elise. I don't know her exact words, but I'm a proud gay Catholic woman with a beautiful wife." Yeah, I thought I need to do this in college. So I did FIRST, and then I got involved as an intern, and it was really a blessing because I was like, I need a job on campus, but going into my sophomore year, but I didn't know I was going to be part of a community. I was like, oh, I'm just an office assistant. Going into training that year, I thought I was literally just going to be at the desk. Like, I said to my friend who moved in, I was like, oh, I have training today, but I'm probably going to go in for like an hour. They'll show me the desk, and then I'll leave. It says I'm from 9 to 5. I have to be there, but I'm sure I won't. I didn't realize I was going into this incredible, incredible community, and that's where I met you. And I just have to say, like, you really, I'm not even trying to be cheesy or gay or whatever, but you were really such a comfort for me in campus ministry, like sophomore year. I'm not even kidding. I was the most oblivious person when it came to like who sexualities, like I don't have a good gaydar. So I didn't know until like, actually no, you would come out at training, but I didn't know you and your partner were like even a thing. I was the last person to know, and they literally had to kiss in front of me, and I was like, oh my God.
They have such strong friendship.
Yeah. I was going to say, I want to edit that. What you said was like, wow, they're great friends.
But I was so shocked. But seriously, you two, and to this day, like, show me what, like, a healthy queer couple looks like. And just, I'm so happy and proud of you. Happy for and proud of you for, like, going on 6 years in this relationship that you started when I knew you. Like, I can't believe it's been 6 years. I feel old. But, and I'm younger than you, but, like, I don't know. You really are such a huge inspiration. And so they took me, I call them moms now. Like, they're like my gay moms.
When I got here, they referred to Nick as their son, and they just said son, and I was very confused because I know that Julia does not have children. But so I was like, son. I was like, who am I missing? Where are the toys?
Yeah. The toys. We went to Love Victor, which is like one of my favorite movies, and I've said this on the show. It's in my top 5 movies. Love Simon, thank you. Love Victor is the spin-off sequel, or spin-off, but it's a Hulu series. We saw the movie in theaters. It was such a fun night.
It was so gay.
Fun. It was, and I just saw myself in that character. And that's also something that I didn't get in high school. Like, I didn't get a relationship in high school. I've talked about mourning that on this show. So that was, but I really, like, I live vicariously through that character, I have to tell you.
Julia, you're sitting here, you kind of got emotional as Nick was talking.
What a sweet man, you know? What a kind soul.
But...
that's the whole reason that, you know, I came out in the first place during training. At that point, I had already been out to the general Loyola community for like 2 years. So no one else in the room was surprised about it, especially not the seniors that were in the room.
Right.
Because they all knew, and they were all my friends.
And I wasn't surprised when you said it, because I just met you. We're talking, like, I'm talking about finding out that you and your partner were together. That's was surprising, because I knew both of you.
But this is something that you alluded to at the beginning, that coming out is a continuous process that you do, you know, almost every day of your life. that's something that I do at work. I do it with new coworkers immediately. One of the reasons that we have not brought up my partner's name on the podcast is to protect her privacy, particularly as it relates to her career. But at my career, I work at a public company that, abides by Maryland Constitution, and that, you're protected under the law from being fired or having your career altered just because of your sexual orientation. So I'm extremely out at work, not just to my coworkers, but to almost everyone I talk to. And that's a little bit in part of, working in construction. I don't want anyone to say anything that they will regret after finding out that I'm queer. Nor do I want them to offer me opportunities that then they don't mean when they find out that I'm queer. And that has sort of become a really wonderful opportunity for other new hires to come in and say, like, oh, there's someone that works here that's like me. And so I know this is a safe space already. And I know that I can be myself openly at work. And I'm sort of experiencing having a Nick all over again at work right now. And I love that so much. It's one of my favorite things. Being able to get new friends and to provide that safe space that, I didn't not have when I came out.
Right.
I just didn't explicitly have.
Right.
And I'm grateful that you brought up Elise, because even if Elise wouldn't openly admit that she's a gay Catholic woman in that space, Elise is a visibly queer person.
Yes.
In that space and in most spaces that she enters into. And that's something that, for people that quote unquote pass is not inherently obvious,
Right. She presents as queer and is very vocal about it. So I don't want to say like, oh, it's okay for people to make assumptions. She makes it known.
Correct.
And that's how she chooses to present herself. I do want to say, we talk about coming out, and you have to come out throughout you don't have to do anything, but if you decide that you want to come out, you'll most likely have to do it again if you want to continue to be out, because you meet new people. That's just how it is. But I do want to hold a huge amount of space for the people that just don't want to come out. That is totally valid. I came out to myself as an 18-year-old or 17-year-old on this retreat. Like, that was when I finally accepted it, and I was like, not only was I accepting of it, but I was like, I love that I'm gay. I love it. Like, I love this. But I didn't tell people. I told a few people, and it was like my secret. But it wasn't a secret of like, I can't be my authentic self. I was my authentic self. I knew that, but it wasn't for everybody to know. This was like something that I held that was very special to me. They actually address it in Love, Simon, where it's like, in the movie, I don't want to spoil too much, but he doesn't have his chance to tell people himself, the main character. That's, you go through a lot as a queer person. So that's one thing you have that's yours. So I really kind of protected it. I didn't even necessarily, I pushed this specific episode out a lot because I was like, I don't want to tell people yet. I'm not ready for it to be like, not mine. It's still mine, of course. But, and I even still am like, oh, I don't really want it to not be mine anymore. But like, it's important to this conversation. And I feel like I would be missing out on participating on something special if I didn't openly discuss it when we were talking with you. So that's why I'm doing it. But I just want to say that, like, you don't need to, it's not inauthentic to not discuss your sexuality or to even, if you're not comfortable, like, you can, I'm not saying we should be obviously live the way you want to, is what I'm saying.
It's also, if I might, someone who is, identifies as straight, right? And I've never really questioned my sexuality, my sexual orientation.
You're missing out.
It's interesting.
I'm kidding. It was horrible for the first 17 years of my life. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I wanted to talk about how it is to hear about, Julie, you said you essentially come out every day of your life because you're meeting new people, even strangers, depending on how you outwardly express that part of yourself, you might get people like wondering, I wonder if they're, because there's certain stereotypes, right, for being gay, for being bi, for being, a member of the LGBTQ community, wherever you might fall along that spectrum. And so it's interesting because I've never really thought about it as coming out every single day. I thought, they came out, they must feel, as Nick, you were saying, they get to be their more authentic self. Right. You get to be your more authentic self.
Right.
Now that you've come out, done. That's over. Right. You've come out of the closet, and which, my ignorance, but like not everyone knows, and that piece. And it's interesting because, and we'll get into this in like another episode, but when we talk about intersectionality, right? Like race is something that you can see. Right. Sexual orientation, gender identity is not necessarily something that you can see. So you talk about kind of having ownership of being able to like tell people or not tell people.
Right. And that's a privilege for me. That is a privilege that I can. Right. I mean, some people say I can't hide it, but like, this is a joke. I'm not going to, just disclaimer, do not say to people, oh, I knew. Unless they ask you, unless you say, like, did you know, or did you have an inkling? Because that's the other thing. If you heard from someone, I'm actually very serious about this. If you heard from someone that so-and-so is gay, I firmly believe you do not know until they tell you.
Personally.
I agree.
Yeah.
Until they tell you personally. You can hear whatever you want, but unless they tell you personally, or you read it like from them if they post about it or something, you don't know. Sure. So don't go around saying, oh, I knew. But when I've asked people, did you know? The joke is that my iPad background in high school was Lady Gaga. So like,
oh honey.
Yeah. So like, they're like, so that's how I knew. But like, I thought I was doing a pretty good job. Like, it was easier, and it was a little bit easier because we were all dressing the same. We were all like, I wasn't like, I feel like I live more authentically now as myself. But like I said, if I were to, I do keep it from some people. There are some people I don't tell, and I don't see that as an authentic. It's just like, it's my authenticity.
I love the idea of holding your queerness like this is something that's sacred
to me. Very special to me.
That's a beautiful way to look at it. I love that.
It is super special to me. And it's just in those moments, like the retreat, falling in love with someone for the first time, meeting other people like you, and it's just, that's the specialness of it. Even I love Pride Month. I understand, like, and I want to reiterate too, like, corporate pride. A lot of companies will slap a rainbow on something. That was the joke I made earlier. As we're serious about it because we're not doing that in our marketing. But I love seeing in June all of the rainbow stuff. Like, and we want to support as best we can the companies that are actually allies. But I'm just saying, like, from a very not non-queer point of view, but I love all the rainbows in June. It's so fun, and we do have to remember that the whole reason we have Pride is because queer Black folks, long before us, although not that long before us, that's the other thing, like, this is still ongoing, fought back against police brutality and homophobia and queerphobia and transphobia.
In New York at Stonewall.
Yes.
What was
it? A lot of them, Stonewall Inn. Yes, a lot of them, trans people of color and queer people of color. So those, and that's, I want to just say this too, not to be like the educator by any means, because I'm very ignorant in a lot of ways about this, and there's always more learning that we can do. That's why the flag on the Progress flag has the black and brown stripe as well as the trans colors, which are the light blue, light pink, and white. They also, I like to think that the reason that they're the arrow, I don't know if you've seen the most recent Progress Pride flag, but it's got like a arrow of those colors, and then there's the rainbow. And I like to think of that as because they were the founders of the movement. So I think that, I don't know if that's actually the case, but that's, and there's also intersex in there now too. Someone put that.
There is the, it's the yellow with the purple circle.
Yes.
And that, like, is the triangle before the Progress arrow.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, I guess basically the point I was making is just, it's something that sexual orientation, gender identity is something that maybe necessarily isn't exhibited outwardly. Again, it can be, doesn't have to be. It's not, I guess, like race is something that's like, okay, it's on your face. It's written on your face.
Right. Sometimes. I feel like sometimes. There's a privilege of being able to, for it to be ambiguous for some people, but it's more often than not.
Right. And my point of like just reiterating that you kind of,
I was able to
trying to take ownership.
I was able to disguise it when I wanted to, and I still am.
It's easier for others than it is for it. But I wanted to pivot into a question because you brought up Pride Month, and we talked about it at the beginning of the episode, and I think I'll go to Julia first. What is the significance of Pride Month for you?
Ooh, that's That's a great question. I think for me, it's a great celebration to me that I'm queer 365, but in June I get to be extra dazzling. I get to be extra celebratory. You can find queer clothes all year round, but they really make it easy to walk into a Target.
I was gonna say, and in June they just really get super ugly. Like,
oh, they really do. There's this full blast on Target. There's this jumpsuit that is an extremely dark green that makes you look like a mechanic. And one of my friends who identifies as straight wants it so bad because she thinks it's so cute. And it's like, that's beautiful and wonderful, and I love that for you, but please don't.
I need the Live Laugh Lesbian shirt. I'm just...
I would love to see that on you. I really would.
I think we need it.
But I think that it's also that you get to see other people be visible, which is really great. You know, we talk about this sort of invisibility, and people that don't talk about their queerness as much in public or online really ramp it up in June, and that's great to see. I always remember the uprising in New York every time this time of year, and I love the power that it puts into people as well. You know, I love having the parties, I love doing the parades, and I love celebrating, but remembering our roots and the power that we hold is exhilarating.
There's a reason for the celebration.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a continued fight too. We're not celebrating that, oh, it's over, it's done.
Right.
There's still a lot, and that's why we get out there and we celebrate and we live our authentic selves the way we want to.
What about you, Nick? What's the significance of Pride Month for you?
Celebration.
Yeah.
It really is celebration, and a celebration of the progress. There's a lot of legislation right now. I am not a historian. I am not a politics buff, per se. You know more than I do, but there's a lot of legislation around anti-gay, anti-trans. There's just all of it. Although I will say the drag ban in Tennessee, I don't know if anybody saw, deemed unconstitutional by a Trump-appointed
federal
judge, which is kind of just hysterical.
Delicious.
But, right? But to me, it is a celebration of who you are, and for myself specifically, like the way I celebrate it, I like to think of it as it's a celebration of something that I really, really love about myself that I find very special. I don't want to make this about Lady Gaga, but she is very much tied into my journey. Look up her activism around Don't Ask, Don't Tell. You might read something about the meat dress, but look it up. I'm fully serious. It's pretty incredible what she did. But anyways, back to our original scheduled programming. You asked how I celebrate, but that's the truth. That's how I celebrate.
We're not necessarily about the significance for you.
Yes, and also giving back to, like, I that's another way I like to celebrate, like giving back to queer artists, finding queer small businesses. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I don't have a lot of money right now, but when I do, like, especially my friends, and we're gonna have two of them on the show next week who are both artists, great artists, and one of them is doing a commissioned piece for me. I'm so excited, and I'm so excited to share their page and promote them because they're just really cool.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah, but that's another way I like to do it.
Mainly true. I love it has this giant water bottle. I love this as someone who is an advocate for hydration.
It's pale around too, so it's
I love
fantastic. I keep herring and a little axolotl with a pride flag.
I love that. Wow, that's fantastic. I didn't even know it was there. That's fantastic. We kept alluding to kind of talking about, and as we have been throughout the episode, but alluding to how faith is just as important to us, and how faith spaces, specifically Catholic faith spaces that we all identify with, their view, their perspective on homosexuality, the LGBTQ community. And so I'm not going to read straight from the catechism. Did I read it before this episode to just brush up on it, sure. But essentially, the Catholic Church's stance is that, as we said earlier, LGBTQ people are made in the image and likeness of God. They are part of the communion of church. Church calls LGBTQ individuals to the community, and that's extremely important, and denounces any type of discrimination, disrespect, just speaking colloquially.
Right. That's the catechism. That's the catechism. That's not the different branches that then like to interpret it loosely.
That's the catechism, and that's I think what you're referring to is that's not me taking a version of scripture and putting my own twist on it.
Right.
Because I think a lot of times that happens in the Catholic community is one translation or another says something in this part of the Bible and then people weaponize it. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking, this is what the catechism says. The catechism also says that LGBTQ individuals are called to live chaste lives, meaning that marriage is meant to be between a man and a woman, and
anyways,
and basically what that's saying is that physical intimacy is also reserved between spouses, man and woman.
Anyways,
so that's what the Catholic Church believes. I hear that, and I hear basically the Catholic Church's stance is that marriage is reserved for man and woman, but any type of discrimination against LGBTQ members is not okay. Do I necessarily believe with everything that the Catholic Church believes in this respect? I'll say no, but I just want to make it clear and put it out there what the Vatican says, what the Catechism says. For those of you who don't know, too, the Catechism is essentially like the rule book of how are you a Catholic? You follow what the Catechism says. It's like, a lot of people you learn in CCD, the 10 Commandments, that's how you're Catholic. Mm-hmm. The Catechism is really, in today's world, how you're Catholic. So with that, when hearing that, Julia, I'll go to you first. What are your reactions? You were kind of nodding along as I was kind of explaining for our audience what the church believes, but
yeah, because I couldn't wholeheartedly agree more. Marriage is between a man and a woman.
Same.
I think I'm nodding along just because, yes, these are the facts. These are the rule book. Right. This is.
I also tried to present it very matter of factly.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
To the point that it made it sound like you're like, I just want to Justin is a huge ally. I just want to reiterate this. He's reading from a screen. Okay, I'll take it. Justin is a huge ally. I love that.
No.
Oh, what's the pace?
Earlier when you were setting up the mic, you were like, he likes me to keep it straight.
He likes me to keep it straight. If you've listened to our episodes this year, we're playing a little game of copy and paste. Anyways.
It was just too perfect.
That was too good. That was too good. I just want to reiterate that you're a huge ally and that you're not.
Yeah.
And, yeah. But continue.
I think it's just because, these are the rules. That's what is in black and white for the Catholic Church. And that's totally cute and super cool.
Right.
And I also I think for me, I recognize that those are man-made rules. That's not God's word inherently. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to also recognize that, not only is Catholicism my faith, but in this room that we're in right now, we have a cross over there, we have a saint statue over there, Sunday palm is over there, we have 3 other crosses in the rooms back there, and 2 Jesus icons above each door here. So, religion is very deeply set into my life, and the life that I've built with my partner. So, I don't by any means knock the traditions and the setup that comes with every part of the Catholic faith, but I also recognize when things are man-made, and that rules that are man-made develop and evolve over time. And I'm so looking forward to the day when that does change. Because, we have to remember that indulgences was also super part of the Catholic Church way long ago,
right.
And we don't like that anymore. So
for those who don't know, indulgences were paying your way to heaven. So if you sinned, you would pay your local parish, you'd pay your local priest money to make up for the sin.
Yeah.
And we simply we don't at least call them indulgences anymore,
yeah.
So we want to get political with that. But, that's simply not part of the rule book anymore. Sure. And so I think that there will come a time, whether I see it in my lifetime or not, that is evolved out as we know our fellow man better, as we know God better, and as we grow all together as the church. But for right now, those are the rules. And that just means that when I envision my wedding, it's going to be different than I had envisioned it my whole life. And that gives me a little bit of freedom that is neat, but it also gives me a little bit of sadness that my relationship that started so centered in faith and in Catholic religion won't be celebrated as it reaches one of its pinnacle milestones, you know?
Yeah.
Celebrated by the people who uphold the religion, which is, that's my interpretation of what you're saying, because it's interesting. It's like it started in faith, and now the people that really gatekeep this faith, in a way, not to use like a modern word.
If I might push back against that too, though, something that I read, and actually Father Martin wrote this article that I'm referring to, and we can include in the description of the episode. Each individual is part of the body of the church, but doesn't necessarily, even the priest, bishop, whoever, even the pope, isn't necessarily, well, I guess the pope is kind of representative of the institutional church, but that individual is not necessarily representative of like the institutional church. And so that was something that Father Martin wrote in this article, was that if there's, say you're going to a liturgy and the priest is preaching, homophobic information, that person, despite them having authority in the church, does not necessarily speak on behalf of the church. And so, there are members of the Catholic Church that I guess, as you said, are gatekeeping the faith, and saying that this is right and this is wrong. Right. But then there are also people like us sitting at this table who are part of that same body who are saying, well,
of course,
though I
too. Do want. Did you want to?
Yeah. So I guess that I'm curious if we look at it from like a sports team, like
sure.
Well, we're in Baltimore, so Lamar Jackson talking about the way that the Baltimore Ravens treated him. Does that? It feels like that then reflects poorly back on the Ravens. Putting it out there that I'm not a Ravens fan, so I can't necessarily speak for them. But
bias disclosed.
Bias disclosed. So I still think that like when a priest, while they're speaking out of their own term, that definitely reflects back on the church anyway, because they're part of the team.
Right. Absolutely, it does. I think it was just interesting to read that, because I had my own criticisms of the article as well, but interesting to just kind of hear that people can speak on behalf of their faith, but also we're all not spokespeople for it.
Correct.
So yeah, like having that kind of dialogue I think is important. Anyway.
Well, I just wanted to point out too the massive hypocrisy in the catechism that we just read that says you cannot.
I didn't read it. I just paraphrased it.
He paraphrased it. Okay.
I don't want people to be like, I don't know what catechism he's reading
from.
Where's this citation here?
All right, please turn to Do 31.
The Book of Deuteronomy.
Yeah, Deuteronomy. No, just the hypocrisy of you can't get married. You shouldn't get married in the Catholic Church if you're gay. Like, you should be chaste. You can't discriminate against LGBTQ people. It's literally like, so what? So only the church can? Like, what is that? Because that's not equality.
I would also love to point out, and Justin, with your knowledge, feel free to step in and correct me here. But the church calls you to be chaste at the segment of your life as well. So if you're a single person,
true,
it asks you to be chaste as a single person, which is like, not having premarital sex and yada, yada, yada.
Right.
So that's also where it comes in, that, one could argue like, oh, well, then just don't get married. And it's like, well, yeah, but that's still not, by these definitions, I'm still not, quote unquote, being chaste to my status, and that's tough.
Yeah. The placement, too, in the catechism of where it is really interesting, too, because it talks about pornography, fornication, rape, and then homosexuality. So it's like the placement of where it is in the catechism is very interesting, too, because it comes after all those things. And, we talk about what you were saying, like fornication refers to being sexually intimate before marriage. And it says,
not fornication.
Yeah, it's like, so it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Even guests now are alluding back to the F's. But that's very interesting too, and I don't know if we want to talk about this, so I'll just mention it briefly. But
do it. I know.
When we talk about Pride Month, and oftentimes when people think about the LGBTQ community, oftentimes I feel as a straight cisgender male that LGBTQ issues are talked about sexually almost immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys have anything you want to share on that piece, but even the placement within the catechism, it comes right after it talks about the rules governing masturbation, the rules governing pornography.
Not masturbation.
The rules governing copy. Like fornication, all those things. So, I'm curious on what your thoughts are on that.
Well, in a way I see why that's the case, because sexuality, like, is, it's
who you're physically attracted
to,
emotionally attracted
yeah.
to, and attracted to, which contains physical attraction. Okay.
Yes. Also, this is for a different episode, but we have to call it out in this episode. Like, let's talk about the one that comes before that, rape.
And that comes immediately before.
Which is also really, really interesting, considering what has the Catholic Church been covering up for years and years and years and years of children. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make a joke. I'm literally like, this is... If we want to talk about a plank in our eye for those who are religious and understand that.
I think that will probably hit really hard for y'all because you're from Boston. Yeah. So I'm sure that's going to be
and you
much
went to
more.
BC High.
My own school was in
Spotlight.
The movie Spotlight.
No.
Yes. From years, when I say years, it wasn't that long ago, but yeah, and it takes place, like, there's a scene of Rachel McAdams walking up she goes into the school, and then it's not our school,
right?
Because it was a movie set, but the stairs of the actual school. So yeah, and that's there, and the school does talk about it. They were open about it. I mean, first of all, they had to be, even if they didn't want to, they had to, because it was a movie. It was,
I think to kind of push that point further about having the LGBT plus community being extremely sexualized. I think that happens a lot as a bisexual woman. Women in general are sexualized like crazy. That's not groundbreaking for anybody to hear, but bisexual women especially, not just in like pornography, but also, anytime we kind of bring it up, I hesitate to use the word a lot because of those connotations, I'm also super gay. I'm watching The Ultimatum Queer Love right now. And
what is that?
The Ultimatum is a reality show.
Okay.
You get the ultimatum, marry me or break up. And they have, I think it's, 3 seasons of heterosexual couples, and this one is the queer love.
Okay.
So everyone on the show could be paired with anyone.
Okay.
And the first episode, I think it's because it's a queer couple, they showed like a really risque scene of them together, and it's not like the little Nest camera in the corner in the bedroom. It's like a full camera crew.
The Nest camera.
So it's very
sponsor us.
There's no boundaries when it comes to sexualizing queer love, I think. I think that's where you get anti-queer and anti-trans kids laws from too, is that people are so afraid of kids being sexual. It's like, well, you're only bringing up sex stuff because it's queer stuff, you know?
Yeah. Honestly, I think about women first when I think sexualization, because it's so talked about. Now, still needs to be talked about more, but I just am affirming what you said and also bringing in my identity. So we did Julia, coming out, queer in college, campus man, Faith, Justin. What else? Final thoughts? Not masturbation. Well, and I drank Coke. That was the other thing. And what did you drink, Justin? Paste.
I had a little splash of urine.
Perfect. Perfect.
Wow, we're completely discombobulated now.
Do you have anything that you want to share as someone who's not on the show every week?
Bring it back next week.
Yes.
The 2 Club.
Yeah, the point of two.
That's
yeah,
cute.
we can
I
also
love
call
that.
it point of duh. 2 in French.
Because French.
Lady
We'll
Gaga
stick to
movie.
point of... No. Oh, yeah, Folie à Deux, yeah. No, I took French before that movie.
Okay.
But we'll stick to point of 2. I like it better. Right? All the straights take Spanish.
I think that... Stop, I took Spanish. How dare you?
She dabbles in French.
Oh my gosh, we're offending cultures now. Here
Not
we go.
offending cultures.
Just entire language cultures it speaks.
I think the last thing that I want to point out is that I have been incredibly blessed and privileged to have my relationship with my queerness and my faith, and that is not the norm. That
Right.
is most definitely the story that you just never hear about.
Mm-hmm.
But my experiences and my partnership have been centered in my faith and centered in the Catholic Church, and I have been extremely grateful for the growth and the opportunities I've gotten to have through that. I am going to hold that in my heart forever. So it's been a wonderful time getting to talk to people about it, getting to talk to the both of you about it specifically, knowing that you are both Catholics and knowing that you have this Catholic experience with me is wonderful. I also feel just very blessed to have shared that with you in the first place, you know?
Of course. No, I feel similarly. Honestly, it's a very special thing to talk about. This is a very special episode for me. My final thought is there are many people that leave the Catholic Church, right? For good reason and for justified right reason, to be honest with you. They feel they're not welcome. And they get that message out of...
Let's say valid.
Ooh.
Valid, because I don't want to say right or wrong, like the decisions. I
Okay.
would say like
Okay.
valid,
All right. I'll
valid in
say
terms of their experiences.
Okay. All right. I'll say that.
Does that work?
That works for me. And there are also people that stick around knowing that there's, some a lot of work to do, so even some corruption, and I that word I do stick by.
Mm-hmm. I think that's
And they continue to stay there because there's work to be done, and both routes, and it's not just one or the other. There are many others are valid and good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do use that word intentionally.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I've enjoyed this conversation. I think, just listening to both of your stories and what you bring to the table and your journeys and things like that. That's kind of why we do the podcast too. I love listening to other people's stories and hearing those things. I feel like being like, I tell stories is such a cheesy thing that people say. I'm a storyteller. I don't know, but no, I really enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed this conversation. Again, given my own identities and things like that, just reflection and my own privilege and ignorances and things like that. So thanks for Julia for coming on to the show, and really appreciate it. And being a regular listener. This is fantastic.
Always so honored when people that I haven't spoken to weekly or daily or know what's going on in our lives, because
people
they
feel
listen
like they've
to
talked to us regularly.
I know,
but we don't talk to other people.
I've absolutely said that to Nick on the phone, that I'm like, I know I'm caught up on what you're doing. Right. I want to expose you really quick, because on your outro it says thank guest if necessary.
Oh,
and
it's
while
necessary.
I know that it means if you have a guest that week, but it sounds like if they did a good job.
Some of our guests don't need the thanks. That's really funny. I never
That is funny. That is funny. All right. My name is Nick Gervasi.
And I'm Justin Duke.
You can reach us at our email, pointofviewpodcast@gmail.com, and on our socials, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok @pointofviewpodcast, and Twitter @pointofview. If you enjoy our show, please make sure to follow the podcast and give us a rating or review wherever you get your podcasts, or share us with a friend or family member. We really appreciate it and are truly grateful for your support. As always, we hope you have a great 2 weeks. Thank you for listening. You're worthy of a thank you as well, Julia. Thank you for doing such a great job. And until next time, let's all say it. H.
Keep